Imagine you are sitting happily on a bench in a park and suddenly a blind person sitting next to you asks you, "Brother, the weather is very pleasant. Can you describe the weather for me? What is the weather like outside?" Now on this you say that, "Okay, I will try." So it is evening, the sky is orange, the clouds are visible like a cloud. So the man has to stop you immediately and he asks you if it is orange. What is the meaning of orange? And then it clicks on you that, brother, he is blind since birth. So he probably would not know the meaning of orange, yet you try to explain that orange is a warm color like today. It is warm, sort of. The color is like this. Due to this, he asks you a question again. But according to me, orange is the name of the fruit, right? And it is not gum. So which orange are you talking about? Now I know our audience. Shakti is able to explain in details using atoms and frequencies, but it will be even more difficult for him to understand like this because he has never felt atoms or frequencies, and that is why, till the end, you ask everyone what image is being formed in his mind. And that Banda replies by saying nothing, and you get sad after hearing this because when you or I blindfold our eyes, we do not see anything. We see the image of whatever we think, isn't it? You and that man are both human beings. But due to the absence of just one sensory organ, the reality of the universe always feels completely different for him. He has seen things from a different perspective and we from someone else. These are short reality subjects, and you all also know this. But just because of the absence of one sense, the power is so different than the absence of one sense. And this is what happens in the perception of space and time too. That is, the concept of space is different. For one, it is different. And do you know that there is an uncertain debate going on for thousands of years? On one side of which is absolutism, which is what philosophy says, that space and time is fixed. And on the other side there is relationalism, which says that space and time differ the day after tomorrow. So now, friends, comes the interesting question. Both of these philosophies have perspective. Which of these philosophies is practical and reality? And which fits properly in the anti-ray picture of the world? Well, if you have the answer, then write it in the comments below, and if not, let the university get so well. Gas scenario is something like this, isn't it? Philosophical and scientific community is already in two parts. Divided was the supporter of absolutism, who said that every object of the universe, including space and time, is real, and there is a society for everyone. For example, we see colors as a society, meaning if, but for example, I see this color if blue. If yes, then you too will see this color as blue. But you know what? It is not so that out of 100,000 people in the world, every single person will see this color as yellow. And in fact, due to color blindness, 1 out of every 12 people will see some color or the other, your comparison. It means that they are seeing the reality as different from your reality, which by the way fits well with the relationalism perspective. Now the colors which are generated from light are also a special anti, and that is why relationalism says that the most ultimate space and time are also different for everyone, because that too is unique for each individual, independence, unique observer, because it depends on their unique perspectives. Now the 16th century philosopher/mathematician Renegade was a full supporter of absolutism, because he believed that the ongoing reality of the math can be understood. He considered the universe as a 3D graph and plotted different objects seen in nature on a 3D graph. Now because all this without disturbing the rules of the universe, he plotted on the graph. Due to this, the decision record concluded that both the universe and the space within it are absolute, and this brought the belief of absolutism into the limelight. This belief got an even more forward push when Newton converted Descartes' coordinates into his own, derived the theory of loss of motion, and proved that along with space, time is also absolute. In fact, Newton had said that all the objects present in this 3D space, even if they move in some direction, time is according to them. It does not move with speed. It will always keep moving forward, and that too at a fixed speed. If you explain it in simple language, then they say that time does not stop for anyone. That is the same concept. Now many people have the same thinking regarding space and time. This went on for years. Newton screwed up a bit here. He made you question Lutism by remembering calculus. In fact, Newton just knows how to allow calculus, which was done by the German polymath Gottfried Lebanon in Albut. because Newton was the best mathematician and physician of his time. Much of the credit for his work went to Newton, so to counter Newton, Leibniz supported the opposite concept of absolutism, relationalism, and maintained such a theory which inspired even Einstein, who considered himself a Leibniz. So see what exactly Leibniz said. So the Leibniz believed that space is a property of particles, and space is based on particles called muons. It is dependent. For easy understanding, these are some particles. Newton said that these particles are lying in the space, and their position can be told by making an origin and reference axis in the space. But at the same time, Leibniz's perspective was that which particles are there. They have some properties like positive and negative charges due to which they attract or repel each other and decide each other's position. Now, if you look at this, it will seem as if these particles are existing in space, but in reality, these particles are moving towards each other. We are interacting with, and that is why space exists. But no one supported this idea because in the 19th century, electromagnetic was discovered, which is a combination of electric and magnetic fields. Now, because these fields obviously pass through something or some medium, it will travel like space. So for some time, this concept of relationalism again went on the back foot, and again people who long believed in Newton's theory that space exists went back to believing in this concept without the need of any other particle. But at the beginning of the next century, Einstein again turned the corner here. As soon as the century came, Albert Einstein proved that space-time is a single entity which cannot exist without each other, now as we know it. If we move in space, time will slow down and space will also warp, and this was Albert Einstein's theory of relativity in short. Einstein proved that space-time is relative to each other and different for different people. Now again, due to this, relationalism regained its hold and the foundation of Newton's absolute space-time appeared to be broken, but Einstein had introduced another concept in his theory of relativity, which was the concept of gravitational field, and it should be known earlier that for the field to exist, it was necessary for a medium, space, to exist, and that is why Einstein's relativity landed right in the middle of absolutism and relationalism. That is, the question was still whether space and time are real or unreal. Now I know you will think that when the space-time expert is unable to give a final word, then how will we know which philosophy is correct? Well, here comes the entry. De-emergency theory is basically a theory which proves that past and future both exist together, because recently when some scientists from Los Angeles understood this theory from the middle of this crystal, then they came to know that reality or space-time is just above our mind. And wait, let me explain. Basically, crystal is a pattern, which are formed by continuous repetition of a cell. Now look here, this is the model of crystal lattice, which is symmetric in appearance, but if you pay attention to its 2D shares, then it is asymmetrical. This asymmetrical pattern is called Kawagi crystal, and emergency theory sometimes believes that our universe is also a 3D projection of this one-dimensional crystal, whose basic unit cell is a tetrahedron, and the length of one side of this tetrahedron is equal to the black length, which is 10 to the power of 16 times smaller than the particles of our standard model. Fundamental particles are formed by arranging these tetrahedra in different patterns, and then the entire universe. Friends, the question is that this different arrangement of them. Well, you want to believe the answer is this consciousness, because see, this entire world and these tetrahedrons that make it up are also mash information, and the basic definition of information is anything that has some meaning, and it can simulate us now like this. If we understand the meanings, then it can be any symbol or pattern of nature, to understand which we compare one symbol or pattern with another. But tell us an example. What is this? Because your brain has subconsciously compared that here, this line. No, now for this kind of comparison, choice is required, which comes only from consciousness. Consciousness is an active process and not a passive process, which means reality is born only from our consciousness, and no scientist of emergency theory is talking about this in the air. This is because the emergency theory has been developed keeping in mind the principles of stream physics, and this scientist is speaking on the basis of the experiment of quantum mechanics, which also received the Beide Nobel Prize in 2022. Now exactly on the basis of quantum and angle. I have explained quantum entanglement many times before, but let us understand what it is in the context of emergency theory. Quantum entanglement is a phenomenon of physics in which two particles are generated from a source and a relation exists between them, due to which the particles become quantum entangled, i.e., they get added here in the purse. Now, as you can see in this video, these particles are first in the superposition state, because there is a state in which the G statement, position, momentum, etc., is not decided. But as soon as anyone observes them consciously, they collapse and the properties of both of them are immediately disintegrated. Now these properties are seen in the unique brain of all of use, which has different unique complicated structures and circuits which have their own results. If we process from perspective and our own unique version of reality appears, then kid off here, if seen, the consciousness of every human being or living being has a very big role on the perception of the P, and that is probably why we troll reality. Real or absolute, they are not absolute but relational. Now friends, to study this topic in more detail, we will have to create a theory which can combine both the frameworks of Einstein's relativity and quantum mechanics and give us more clarity. And perhaps the emergency theory is a very promising computing theory. Apart from this, there is another theory called the simulation theory, which is only and only based on the standpoints of relative state and quantum mechanics that space and time are not real. Rather, there is a relation that also gives very interesting findings because friend scientist has now completely simulated the helium atom, which means in the upcoming 2, he can also simulate and prove my molecular object in infarct brain. Maybe we are really a part of a simulator world, girlfriends.